Hai, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Ramadan Kareem. So, here we are back again on Intercultural Communication, Chapter 4 for Sport Communication. I bet you guys must be wondering why I put oranges there because I just want to ask your opinion. Whenever you see oranges or you see a lime or a tangerine, what would come across to your mind? Well, if you ask me, if I'm looking at the tangerine, then definitely I'll be thinking about Chinese New Year because in Chinese New Year we get lots of tangerine that we can eat. So, yeah, that's why I put it there because it's related to intercultural communication. So what are we going to learn in this chapter? So let's check it out. This is the chapter outcome. Okay, so Ed, Ed is my husband name. Okay, Eddie. At the end of the chapter, you guys should be able to explain about intercultural in sport, describe what is co-cultural theory, and what are the co-cultural theory of communication. And then you're going to relate a pop culture with team culture. Pop culture is not um, candy or whatever it is. Okay, pop referring to current. So we're going to relate the current culture with team culture. So we are going to learn about team culture and then we're going to relate it with pop culture. And then we're going to explain the relationship between sports, team culture, cohesion and role. And then you should be able to provide examples on the barriers of intercultural communication in sports, determine the strategies to improve intercultural sports communication. So are you guys ready? Because I'm so ready. Let's begin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, because everything should be start with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Kan? Alright, so intercultural communication in sport. So it is an interaction process between sports related individuals whose cultural perceptions are distinct enough to change the communication event to achieve effective communication, which means that it is an interactions between anyone who are in the sport setting, okay, who have different cultural perception, and it can create a new communication process in achieving effective communication or in achieving the common goals um, on messages transmitted. For example, I am a Malay and then my coach is an Indian, so definitely we have different culture, we have different cultural perception. So whenever we are creating a communication, we are going to create a new communication because it is between two culture and we are trying to achieve the same meaning or same goals of communication. Okay, so this is by Samovar, Porter, and McDaniel on 2010. Okay. Intercultural communication in sport has contributed to the international thoughts because you know that communication is. Sorry, that's my phone. That's why you need to silence your phone during class. Okay, even though it's an ODL, you still need to silence out your phones. Okay, so sorry for that. Okay, so intercultural communication has contributed to international thoughts. Okay, because you know that communication is an essential key element in human life, and we do communicate like every single day, and every single one of us communicate. Therefore, the communication had evolved internationally or globally. We can call it globally because we have friends from different country, different states, different places. We have lots of friends which have different culture, different belief, different opinion. Therefore, this is made possible because the language of sport, it's of actually PF, okay, my typo, of sport is easily shared interculturally. Okay, you know that because language of sports, right? People are playing sports, right? So if you are playing hurdles, All right, people in Malaysia and people in America are having hurdles the same. They know hurdles as the same sport. So that is why the language of sport is easily shared interculturally. The way we play volleyball here applied the same rule, uh, just like Americans playing volleyball, just like that. Simple example. So sorry, I'm so rusty nowadays. My God, this is my English. So there are a few benefits that you'll get if you learn intercultural communication in sports, right? First, it is because you will understand that culture and language, they are inseparable. They cannot be separated, okay? So the common language of sports give opportunities for the outsiders to understand the other cultures because if you're playing wushu, there's also Malay people who play wushu, even though wushu is a traditional martial arts for Chinese, but nowadays there are also Malay who play wushu. So why this happened? This has happened because of the placement of local rules into practice in an approach understandable by the new person. So even though it's a new culture, but we tend to understand it because it has been penetrated in a local. So we know that wushu is a martial art game played or common in Chinese traditions or Chinese culture, but we have been penetrated about wushus ever since we are kids, so we know about that sport. So that is why we can understand that and we are willing to learn that. Okay. Next is it will increase our self-awareness because we will have a good understanding about our cultural identity and a good understanding about our cultural background. For example, like if you are Malay, you're not playing or you're not involved in silat, which is one of the Malay martial arts, but because it happens in a culture, it happens. It happens to be that we are penetrated with the knowledge that silat is played by Malay and it has in traditional belief upon it. So we tend to know about our cultural identity and background. Okay, so this will help individuals to avoid ethnocentrism. What is ethnocentrism? Is a prejudice prejudice thought and prejudice judgment about other culture. Okay, and then you understand about the demographic changes because continuous demographic changes and societies experience encourage sports operator to understand about the present demand. Whenever there is a new sport, okay, there's a new sport, um, this new sport had been introduced in a country, for example, in Malaysia. Before this, running is not a common activity or what we call a popular activity done by Malaysian, but somehow this running traditional running culture had been penetrated in Malaysia and it has been what we call proposed or introduced by celebrities, athletes. So it had become a phenomenon to Malaysia, and nowadays lots of Malaysians understand about the benefits of running, and they do running even they are staying in what we call in a rural place or even they are in urban places. So this is what it meant by the sports operator do understand about the present demand. So nowadays people are doing running activities, so definitely the demand for running shoes, demand for running kits, running apparel. So these are things that they need to look up to. Okay, and then we will understand about the workplace and economic globalization, because in order to compete in a global sports market, foreign athletes and sport operators should understand on how business and cultural practice are conducted in other countries. Different countries has different rules and regulations. They have different law. They have different ways in handling the legal issues. So the athletes, um, the sports operators, they need to understand this. If not, they're not going to they're not going to succeed in the competitions among the other sports operators and in the sport market itself. Okay, so by understanding intercultural communication, we will know about the culture in different countries, and this will help us in developing our businesses in the spot market. So it also helps us in understanding the demographic changes that happen, and then intercultural communication will increase our self-awareness because we are aware about our cultural identity and background, and it also helps to um, teach us about the language of sports and how sports is understood by people around the world. Okay, so what is cultural? Cultural is a blueprint or a guide for a living identified by shared pattern agreed by the society of individuals. For example, we have thoughts of belief, we have behavior, traditions, ritual, dressing, languages. We have Malay language, we have Mandarin, we have Tamil, um, we have Muslim, we have uh, Hindus, Buddha, so we have Christian, we have Deepavali, we have Hari Raya, we have Chinese New Year. So these all things, thoughts, belief, behavior, traditions, rituals are known as the cultural. Okay, co-cultural is where a social communities showing communication features, views, ethics, and practices that adequately differs from the community and the dominant culture. Which means that if they are from they're actually being different by not being the origins of the culture. For example, as a culture of Malay people, um, we what are the culture of Malay people? Let me think first. Yeah, okay. As a Malay and Muslim, we know that if we are living in a rural place or village, okay, they always told the children not to go out during Maghrib because there's lots of spirits to haunt them. But co-culture is a Malay people, Muslim, but maybe who lives in the urban area. So they'll tell their children not to go out during Maghrib because um, it's already dark and there's lots of dangers out there. So it's different from the dominant culture, which we believe spirits and everything. But this co-culture is actually comes from the dominant culture, but it creates a new views, it creates a new ethics, it creates a new practices that is different from the dominant culture. Okay, so that is co-culture. So talking about co-cultural theory, it actually defining or describing on how an individuals in a co-cultural group communicate with the dominant group. Okay, for example, like what I said, maybe because the parents live in a rural or in a village, their thoughts and beliefs are different. Okay, they believe in the spirits more than people who live in urban areas. So how the youngsters, the younger version of them, talking to the elder person is the way of we are describing it as individual on communicate with the dominant group. Okay, so sometimes the dominant society will label the co-culture members as strangers because they have different thoughts and beliefs. So um, they will have different types of communication practices in order to make things smooth and not awkward. And communication practices are chosen for a reason that differ co-culture group members. So it's actually this theory is defining on how the members of co-culture is trying to communicate effectively with the dominant culture society, because it is not always easy to talk for someone who have a different thoughts and belief with you. Sometimes you just have to agree to disagree, right? So the way we communicate with the dominant culture is actually defining the co-cultural theory. Okay. Next, we have team culture. Okay, team culture, you should know that team culture evolved in a team itself. A team can be considered as the person who are working together, living together, or working together in achieving a same goal. So that is team culture. Okay, that is team. Sorry, team culture is a stem or a branch who developed by a members who is influenced by the pop or current culture. For example, in a group, okay, before this, that group never talked to each other, and the working environment is full of sorrow. But then, because of this one person who is influenced by the pop or current culture, they tend to be a little bit loud, and they are influencing others by making them feel it is interesting to do so. So they are changing the culture from the sorrowfulness culture to a happy-go-lucky culture. So this means that team culture is actually a, an influence from a member who is influenced by a pop culture. Okay, so talking about sport team culture, cohesions, and roles. So team cohesion possesses by the team members which control the culture of the sports team, because sometimes there are teams who um, play play to win, some play for performance, some play for popularity. There are different cultures in different teams, so each members might have a different cultural upbringing. So this is also might influence the team. Okay, in the team there are lots of individuals in it, so each and everyone has different belief, different opinion, different cultural environment. So this will definitely give effects to the team where they are going to create a new team culture. Okay, so the coach need to understand each of the players set, what are their interests, what are their attitude, and what are their habit, in order to generate a positive team culture. If the coach are unable to do so, the team might be influenced with negative vibes. So this is not good. Okay, so it is very important for the coach to understand this. This is the term that you might wonder, ethnocentrism. It is an evaluation of other culture according to preconceptions originating the standards and custom of one's value. It considered as your perception or your judgment in what we call in comparing the standards and the custom for one's own culture. So this is not a good thing to do. Okay. So ethnocentrism is one of the barriers of intercultural communication because when you have a negative judgment, this will definitely build a barrier upon you and the other person who have a different culture, thoughts, and belief other than you. So by said, you should avoid having ethnocentrism thoughts. Okay, we should be neutral. We should understand other people's languages. We should understand other people's culture, and we should respect them. Then only they will respect our culture, because respect is something that is given, not earned. Okay, so we should be not sure whether it's a given or earned. Yes, it's something that's given, not earned. So we need to respect others first, and then inshallah they will respect us back. Okay. For example, current issues. We're talking about the Rohingya people in Malaysia. We do understand that alongside the Rohingya that come to Malaysia, there are also Muslim Rohingya. Okay, I'm not blaming all of them, but most of them have bad attitude. Okay, they should understand that they are welcome here before this, because we feel sorry for them. Okay, but they need to understand that this is not their land. They need to understand the Malay culture. They need to understand the Chinese culture. They need to understand the Indian culture. They need to understand the Malaysian culture because they are living in Malaysia. So, due to their actions that posted publicly, it had caused ethnocentrism towards the whole Rohingya, because we tend to believe that every one of them is bad. Okay, so that is why ethnocentrism is a barrier of intercultural communication. By then, we're not going to give a chance for them to speak or to be communicated with us. Okay, language language dissimilarities. Okay, we have different types of language. So, for example, if your friend is a Korean and he cannot speak Malay or English, which he can only speak Korean, that would definitely be a problem, because you don't understand Korean. You only understand Malay and English. So you can't talk, you can't communicate. So that is why it is a barrier to intercultural communication. Other than that, different accent and slang also may be the reason for intercultural communication barriers. For example, just an example, yeah. I'm from Pahang, and this is my first time in Perlis, and I listened to a person who speak in Perlis accent, so I might not be able to understand what he said. So yes, language dissimilarities also the barriers in intercultural communication. Next, we have differences of body language. Do you know? Do you guys know that in different country, body language can give you different meanings? For example, okay, the Latin Americans, proximity to the North Americans will create uneasiness. They're not happy if you have what we call proximity to them, distance, okay? And then the eye contact among the Britons and Americans caused uneasiness to the Southern Europeans, which means that Southern Europeans people doesn't like eye contact. So don't be offended if you go to Southern Europeans, they don't look you in the eye, so just be it because it's their culture, okay? Different body language can give you different meanings. For example, in Japan, when you bow, it means respect. But maybe in certain country, when you bow, it means disrespect or you're guilty. So yeah, you can look on to YouTube channel. You can search for different types of body language in the world. So they will show you the example of different body language with different meaning. Okay. Alright, and then level of context. High context culture assume the audience member to get construct extra sense in general. For example, in America, saying no means that you're being honest and you are aware about your decision, okay? But in the Asia, or definitely in Malaysia, saying yes or maybe, that can also be indicated as no, as a frank refusal, direct rather than honest. We, especially the Malay people, we have not different, we have problem. We have problem by saying no, because when we say no, even though we're being honest, but we're afraid on making other people offended. So instead of saying no, we said okay, maybe. So because we are afraid that we might hurt someone's feeling, okay? This is because we have lower context. That's why. Okay, so level of context can be varies in intercultural communication. Next, we have differences in expressing feelings and emotion. Of course, okay, there are certain people who are very comfortable by expressing their feelings. If they like you, they told you they like you. If they don't like you, then they just smack that onto your face. But there are also people who are not who can't easily express themselves. Okay, so for example, the Englishmen typically control their behaviors. Okay, but the Italians, they are comfortable by showing and expressing their feelings. Okay, you got the difference there. So that is why how different expressing feelings and emotion can be various. Sometimes we're not comfortable with people who are very daring, very strict, okay, because we're not like that. But some of them, they are very comfortable with that. So you need to learn to understand their culture. Okay, how to improve? Well, first you need to listen and observe. Listen and then observe. So you can gain lots of ideas while you're listening rather than you're talking, because you're watching others communicate. Be a learner, okay? Identify the ideas of others. If you can, try to stress less on your own opinion, because we want to be a learner. We need to listen to other people's opinion and we need to learn from them, okay? And then awareness of own culture, you need to maintain on your own style of communication. You need to understand well about your culture. You need to understand well about your cultural identity, and then you get curious, okay? Experience diverse cultures. Get curious. If you see someone is doing other rituals rather than solat fardu, So be curious, just not because you are being busybody, but you can ask them, hey, I saw you praying just now, so why did you do that? Okay, and then, or um, why is that movement is needed in performing? Okay, so because when you get curious, okay, about other people's culture, they also will be interested in your culture, and then you'll develop a good relationship. See, and then related to get curious, exposed to different cultures. Okay, try to visit different places, try to join social international events so that you understand. I just want to share, I really enjoyed going to the cultural village in Sarawak. It's really good because that was my first time in Sarawak, and then I went to the cultural village and I can see that there's lots of ethnics in Sarawak, and they're showing us their traditional songs, traditional dress, traditional foods, traditional house. So it's really good to understand that, and I really try to be as curious as I can, so I ask as many questions as I can. I even went to the Rumah Panjang, and then I also went to, there is one house, I'm not sure what's the name of the house, Penan House or whatever, I don't remember, but it's really high, and you need to climb up the stairs, and it's scary, it's really scary. Okay, so I do understand that the ethnic live in the forest, so that is why they are doing a house that is so tall so that they can climb. Okay, and then I also went to a house that specially built for people who lives by the sea. So you can see that the structure, the design is really um, um, what we call it's really suitable for the places that they're living in. Okay, so if you've never been to Sarawak, go to Sarawak, go to Cultural Village Sarawak. Maybe after the PKPs or after we end this COVID, inshallah. So you can plan for Citi Malaysia, go to Sarawak, and then you can also go to Sabah, where you can find lots of different ethnics and you can learn lots of from them. I also went to Sabah. I learned lots of things. I do try to eat the there is one fruit that only available in Sabah, which is tarak, buah tarak. It's really nice. It has a look like a jackfruit, but the taste is different. It's really good, it's juicy and tender. I can even still remember the taste. Okay, but it's only available in Sabah. So by understanding these kind of food, setting, traditions, rituals, belief, so you'll get to know other people, and you're going to create a new communication practices. Okay, like when I'm in Sarawak, I try to learn a bit about how to speak in Sarawak accent, and then when I'm in Sabah also I try to understand and try to communicate in Sabah a little bit. Okay, because I'm not from there, and I'm new there, but I'm trying to learn about their cultures and how they talk, because I want to talk with them comfortably. Okay, so that is the things that also happens in sport. If you have a different teammate that comes from a different state, you need to understand their culture, you need to understand their language and slang, then only they will also learn about you, because it's a win-win situation, right? Because when we are giving, someone will take and give it back. So yes, we need to be tolerant in doing this. Okay, so as a conclusion, sport communications differs as sports and plays important role in success of a team. So the co-cultural theory will provide the understanding of complicated relationship between culture, power, and communication, accordingly between the dominant culture and the co-culture. And then you also understand that the communication is definitely the key ingredient in creating a team cohesion, because By understanding their culture, we are going to communicate well, and this will definitely develop our team cohesions. Okay, so I guess that is all for today's chapter. I hope that you do understand about this chapter, intercultural communication, which is very important because we are living in Malaysia. We have different races. We are living harmonically in colorful country. So I really hope that because you have learned about intercultural communication, try to understand about other culture, try to learn about them, and maybe somehow you can educate them about our culture, and this will definitely create a harmony Malaysia. Okay, so until then, guys, I wish you all the best. Happy fasting. Um, don't forget to eat your sahur. If you have any questions, you can simply ask me whenever you want to ask, whenever you're you have thoughts about asking, then you just can ask. Okay, so I hope this chapter will benefit you in any ways. So inshallah we will meet again on the next chapter. With that, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and goodbye.